Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Wonder what's behind that door. Don't you wonder what's behind that door? I gotta do something with that stark white door. I don't like the way it looks. Ever since I rearranged my room, it just shows up prominently in these videos, and I think I had doors behind me in other videos too, even way back when. But this video isn't about that. You know, about a year and a half ago, I made a video about class and level. I think it was in May 2017, thereabouts. And not so long afterwards, it wasn't a response or anything, RuneSlinger made a video, I think it was probably around June or July of 2017, about class and level. It's an excellent video, and I'm probably not going to have time when I post this, but hopefully I'll go back and throw those little annotations or cards or whatever in there so I can link them to this video. It's an excellent video he made about class and level. And I made a reply video sometime in July. And I went back and I watched all of those recently because in the last video I made, I talked about, maybe some more perspective on class and level as I've continued to game. And one of the things that's happened in this past year is I've been gaming a lot, especially in the last few months. It's really kind of accelerated, which is great. And some of the games have class and level, some of them don't. And I just wanted to share my perspectives or my experiences. And this is really just a bias and preference video. This really doesn't mean anything. It's not saying that this is good, this is bad, all that sort of stuff. It is a channel about me, after all, so I'm talking about my own gamer evolution. I think I made a few videos talking about that. But anyhow, let me get started now that I've just kind of blathered a little bit. I've noticed, as I'm playing some games which include class and level. We're playing a game of BX called BX Essentials, but it's BX. Company of the Raven, which Eloy is running, which is a great game. I'm running a Lamentations of the Flame Princess game called Lamentations of the Martian Princess. But I'm also playing games of Mithras, Delta Green. We played All for One Regime Diabolique. We just played a Leagues of Cthulhu game, part one of hopefully a two-parter, which will be up at some point. Hollow Earth Expedition. We played a little bit of Star Wars. We've Star Trek. All sorts of things. Most of these games do not include class and level, and I want to treat these two things separately, as Anthony did as well, because I have different kind of impressions about them lately, and class is a little bit easier. Anthony mentioned in his video some time ago about like open classes versus closed classes. I think he called it. The idea that there are classes or professions in something like Star Trek, or Star Wars rather, or in various other role-playing games which include like a class where you have a lot of decisions, you have a lot of options, so they don't necessarily have to be cookie cutter. Part of the restriction of a class, which I've been noticing more and more, is it kind of shoehorns you into this one particular archetype. And it's not that that's a bad thing. Like I really appreciate the idea that in many games it allows you to pick some kind of profession or archetype or class or something where it gives you this picture of the character. And hopefully they provide enough of those that you can find one that suits you. However, very often I find myself wishing for some more options. And I don't mean in a customization special snowflake sort of way. I mean, I start to get a picture of what kind of character I'd like to play, who this person is, what they might be skilled at, what kind of experiences they might have had. And sometimes I can't find that, and it becomes somewhat restrictive. I even experienced this in another way, in a game that has no classes whatsoever, in designing a character for our Mithras game, or Mythros. Using the Mithras system, there is kind of, you choose skills from your background, your social class, profession, all that sort of thing. And there are some skills that just simply aren't available to you. And even then, there were times when I was wishing for a little bit more options. Couldn't this guy have an experience like this or whatever? You get the picture. So I like to have, I find, for me, I like to have options open. And classes can restrict that somewhat, or a lot. And so I found myself really enjoying games which are a lot more skill-based, where you can sort of come up with a concept of a character in your head and find a way to make them happen. And once again, for me, it's not in a power gaming way. That's the wrong word. I'm looking for, it's not in an optimization way, but just kind of figure out, okay, who is this guy? Because as we go through our daily lives, we meet a lot of people, and a lot of people with some pretty interesting and varied skill sets, some of which make no sense at all. And I kind of like that. And we see characters like that in literature very often, or film. So I've been enjoying the ability that a lot of these games have given me to sort of create a character in that manner. Who is this person? As far as levels, or the lack thereof. I found that more and more, as I've been playing these various games, and some games we are leveling up as a thing. In other games, you're simply improving some skills. And the last video I made, I talked about the difficulty I have improving those skills sometimes, remembering to do that. It's mostly in games online, but I think there's a lot of dynamics that go on with that. However, and I've talked about this before ad nauseum. Very often gamers talk about this sweet spot in a level-based game where here's a level spread where the characters really feel the most alive. They don't feel incompetent, but they don't feel hyper competent and cartoony and ridiculous. And what I've noticed over and over again is in many skill-based games where levels aren't a thing, you're able to create a character, based upon that system, because they all have the kind of different levels of where these characters kind of end up in terms of how powerful or competent or whatever you want to call it they are. You're able to start the game with a character that's competent, that fits, and as Anthony so succinctly and eruditely talked about in his video, which I will not be able to duplicate quite as well, is this enables me, I've noticed, to focus on the character. Who are they? What do they want to do? And less on progressing. We even had this discussion in our local, I want to call it the local group. We're not local at all, but our online gaming group. And CGA posted, I think it was on Facebook, his gaming goals for this year. And one of the things he said was a goal was he wants to be able to cast Fireball as Cameron, the wizard, in our BX Essentials game, our Company of the Raven game. And, I smiled. But I thought about that. That's part of what happens in a level-based game. Is there are these goals, these things out of reach, and you can't help but start to plan for. Oh, I wish when I get there, I'd like to be able to do this, and it's you can fall into that trap. But I've noticed myself finding that less and less satisfying in a game where these things are coming to you eventually. And I don't mean because, I wish my character could do this now. It takes my focus away from the character. Who is the character? What are we doing? What are my motivations? What's important to my character? And it starts to put them on, well, gosh, when I get this competent, and it starts to, it doesn't feel as good to me. And I'm not saying I dislike those games anymore and I'm going to abandon the OSR and never play Lamentations of the Flame Princess or BX or anything like that again. But I've noticed the difference, and I've noticed what feels more natural and right to me. And one of the things I want to talk about in a different video, I don't want to start throwing all these examples in here in this one because I want to kind of keep them separate, is a lot of the things that Mr. Raji has done with his alternate rules for Lamentations of the Flame Princess and some of the stuff he's done in the past. And I don't want to make this a Lamentations video. I really kind of smile because what a lot of that seems to do is take away that focus on improving and leveling up and putting it instead on, well, who is this character? Now, they may die horribly and have horrific things happen to them, but I like that. I like the feel, and so we're trying some of those ideas out in our Mars game. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. In revisiting Class and Level, I'm finding that more and more, while it's not that I'll never play Class and Level games again, it's that I'm noticing that, especially when it comes to level, I'm enjoying games where that's not the case, where you don't have to concentrate on those things, where you can kind of create a character that suits your idea, and they already suit your idea, and then you don't have to focus on improvement. I can instead focus on being that character. Who is this person? What do they want to do? What are we trying to do? And not focus on progression and improvement. So that's just kind of my checking in where I'm at. So what do you think about that?